All right, I'm going to start out with our reference picture. This is for our July 10th prompt, which is turtle. And we're going to simplify this. I'm excited because they're simple shapes that we're going to paint. I'm going to put this on pause, so if you need to screenshot it now. This came from Unsplash, and it was a picture that was posted by Eugene Kaislakov, I think is how you spell it. But anyway, all right, I'm going to pause, and we'll start our painting. All right, I am using Meaden's 100% cotton paper. Today I chose rough. I had purchased a pad of paper. I recommend, I wouldn't say that this is going to be my favorite paper. I really like both arches. I paint on arches a lot. And then the other thing I love is Bao, but I wanted to give Meaden a try. And so it's really affordable. If you are watching this on July 10th, it is on sale right now on Amazon. I'm not affiliated with anybody. I'm not sponsored by anybody. So when I give you a review, it's going to be a really honest review. And so I like it. I think it's a great paper. I think that Bao is my favorite paper, and so it's going to be hard to beat that. But what's really nice about this particular tablet is you get 5 sheets of rough, 15 sheets of cold press, and 10 sheets of hot press. So you get to try some different papers to see what is going to work best with your painting style. So I have painted on the hot press, both the hot press and the cold press. This will be the first time that I'm using the rough. I think when you're just starting with watercolors, it's really important to do a lot of exploring. And even as you are continuing to progress, to do a lot of exploring. Okay, so we are going to keep our turtle shape super, super simple. I like that. I know this is making the videos take a bit longer, but I think doing these little sketches beforehand is nice because it's a good skill to continue to work on. So his shell is basically a gentle C shape here, right? And it comes out a little here. Kind of comes like this. And then there's kind of a notch where his head comes out, and it looks a little bit like, it's like that. And then it comes down and around. That's super easy shape. Okay, and then his head, they have these funny little heads. They almost look like snake heads. We're just gonna make a line up, and then his neck kind of extends past where the edge of the shell is. So we're gonna extend this up. And then his head, he just kind of comes, we don't have to make this perfect, right? And it kind of comes like that. It's maybe a little rounded here, and it kind of rounds a little bit there. But you can make it kind of flat too. All right, I think that's pretty good. And then he's got his little feet, which come out here. And they're just like kind of a U. So just make a U. And then we're going to make some little claws. I believe he has 1, 2. I don't know much about turtle anatomy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toes. 1, 2, yep. And this last one is kind of on the rock, right? 1, 2. So we'll put one in the middle. 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 toes. And then his shell, and you can kind of see his leg coming back this way because his shell is open in this spot, right? So is that, we can even kind of, there we go. Now the bottom of his shell comes across here, kind of comes up like this a little. Got that a little low. So at this spot where his foot begins, that's where the shell comes back like this. And if you want to like find a picture that you can trace, you can go ahead and do that and get your tracing down, and then we can, oh, he's got a little tail. Or if you want to work on this and do it like this, you can do that too. It's really up to you on how you want to work. Okay, and then he's got a little piece of shell there, and then his back paw, it kind of bends like this, and it comes around, and it scoops in a U also. This one's a little bigger, and then it kind of goes back up here, and you can see his shell there. This is like the side of a shell. All right, that's all we're gonna do. And same thing here. He's got 5 toes. They kind of come back a little bit. So where this bigger U is, his toes are kind of included in that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There. Is this perfect? No. But it's gonna be cute. We're not going for perfect. He's got like toenails too. So we're going to kind of draw those in just so that I remember to put them in later. They're really dark. Okay, that's it. And then he's sunning himself on a rock. So we're just going to draw kind of a rock surface here, and you see green in the background. We are going to add his eye, which is right, his head kind of comes like this. It's a little, his eye is right up here, and it looks a little bit like a teardrop shape like that. And then he's got his little mouth. I've got some kind of bobbles here, so let's clean that up a little bit. The other thing that you'd be welcome to do is when I get to this point, if you want to take a screenshot of the video and then just print this out. And he's got like this really cool yellowing color that comes like this. And so I want to make sure that we're going to paint that yellowy stripe because it's really very cool. Okay, so if you want to, I think my lines are dark enough. If you want to screenshot this and then just take this drawing and trace it on your paper, you can do that too. You can put the video on pause, go ahead and do that, and then come back and paint it with me a little later. That is fine. Okay, I'm fuss budgeting now. I'm gonna try not to. We're keeping it simple. Okay, and his other leg is on the other side. You can kind of see a shadow of that. Maybe we'll add that in because I think it looks a little funky. It looks like something's missing back here. So his tail is here, and his other leg kind of comes back. You just kind of see it, kind of a shadow of it, right? Like that. And you can see one kind of toe and there. Okay. Oh, you know what it is? It's on the edge of the rock. That's why it's looking funky. Okay, so you see and it's like it's kind of tucking back behind the rock. There we go. Okay, that's why. Got it. And his tail is just a cute little tail. All right, I think I'm going to be done messing with the drawing. And okay, I'm going to just pause here for a second. Screenshot it if you want to. Go ahead and make a print. This needs to arch up a little. All right, there we go. And then we are going to get started with our paints now. So I'm going to lighten all of my lines. Dark enough so that I can see them, but light enough that they won't be the thing that stands out and is super obvious. And I think for this guy, let's start with painting the turtle and we'll finish with the background. His shell is highlighted with the sun. We're going to just keep it, it's kind of a gray mottly color. And then it's got some kind of white between the shell. We might actually make that a different color. Sometimes turtles have a darker part beyond their shells. We might do it that way. I don't know. We're going to decide. So first of all, what we're going to do is start with our lightest color. And we're just going to paint this lightest color over basically the whole turtle. And I'm using just kind of this gray. It's got some ultramarine in here. It's got some green in here. It's got some, yeah, so it's this kind of grayish color, kind of a mix. So if you have a mix on your palette, just use it. That's why I like to keep these mixes in here. I use them a lot for my first washes. All right, and I'm just going to paint the whole thing, right? Because we're just... The only thing I'm going to avoid is this like little yellow ring up here. I'm going to paint his feet. And we're going to try to move that paint pretty quickly, right? And we're going to paint, oh, he's got like the underneath of his shell. Which is kind of yellowy, but there we go. And the reason we want to move kind of quickly is so that we get a nice even wash. If we take our time, then we start to get things looking a little stripy. Okay, and I'm just going to leave that yellow circle alone. And I'm going to leave his eyes out too. I kind of left the yellow circle alone. Yeah, that's okay. All right. All right, so now, before this dries all the way, we are going to work on his back. And if we need to go in and add some more water, we can. I'm going to use a smaller brush because I want a little less water. If I use a bigger brush, I have a tendency to use too much water. I'm going to get my size 5. And now what we're going to do is mix a little bit more green. I'm going to use this, I have what's called green apatite, genuine green apatite, I think. Apatite, green, I don't know. I don't know which order the 3 words are in, but those are the 3: apatite, green, and genuine. It's made by Daniel Smith, and it's one of their mineral paints, and it does some really cool things on the paper. It's very granulating, and so I think it's going to be a nice mix for this. And I'm going to let my little bit of my blue mix into that. And we're just going to start right here. So there's like a little bit of, and this is a little wet, and we want it a little wet. And we're just going to leave little spaces. I'm just painting little squares along the edge of the shell. And they're going to bleed because our paper is wet. Now, if you're working on cellulose paper, your paper dries really quickly, and this is not going to bleed out quite as well. That's part of working on cellulose paper. Now, we're going to do the same thing. Again, I'm going to mix a little more blue in there, I think, because I want this to be a little more, this part to be a little more blue. And I'm going to keep it light, and we're going to do those bigger sort of plates. And I'm going to start on the upper back and work my way down. And so you've got kind of a plate here and kind of a plate here. I don't know what these guys are called, the technical words. I don't know much about turtles actually. And then what's interesting is wherever this line is, this next kind of falls in like this. Just kind of the way that it works, right? And then this one, and they kind of come out. And then same thing for this one. And you can see my paper is kind of drying because it's not blending as fast, but that's okay. And then we're going to kind of come down here, same thing, and bring it like this. Okay, and let's bring this one. Just filling in. It's a little more wet back here still, a little more moisture back there, so it's fading out a little more there. All right, there we go. That's our turtle shell. That was easy peasy. The next thing we want to do is add some yellow around this base because the bottom of the turtle's carapace, I think that's a correct word, is a yellowy color. I'm going to use this quinacridone gold because it's got a really nice, I think it's going to work well for this. And we're just going to kind of pull in here. And I'm going to pull in kind of a stripe like that. And then I'm going to take my genuine apatite green. And I'm going to take a much more, so I'm going to use a much more intense, less water. And we're just going to come along the top of that. And the bottom. There. And we're going to let it kind of blend together. And then his legs are kind of dinosaur-y looking, and there's a lot more blue to those. So I'm going to pull some blue into my big puddle. I'm still going to use a little bit of green in that blue because I don't want it to be a straight blue. It's kind of a almost grayed out. So I might even add just a little bit of, let me rinse off my brush here. We're going to add just a touch of my quinacridone rose to dull that out. Ooh, that was a little much. That's okay. Let's pull back in some more of here. Add a little bit of our green. There we go. Oh, I like that. Look at how beautiful. It's like a almost denim-y color. Okay, perfect. A little more green. So I'm just being a little fuss budget. Oh, there. See, that's beautiful. There's a little bit of green undertone. That pink just kind of dulled it out, so it's a gray, blue, green color. And that's what I'm going to use for his feet. And so I'm just going to come in, and we're just going to take it all the way to his toes. But I'm going to paint a little bit, he's got like a little, you know, it's kind of like, I'm going to leave some spaces here, especially towards the center of his leg. Do you see how we did that? And so I kind of danced the brush around the middle, and that's because he is scaly. And I'm going to do the same thing. His tail is a little striped with a little bit of yellow, but I'm just going to kind of dance the tip. I'm dancing the tip of my brush up so that it's not a perfect line. And I'm going to do, and I'm going to go underneath. It's just a little teeny bit of white or yellowy striped. And I'm going to do the same thing on the top. And then I'm going to pull a little yellow in there. But I'm going to let it dry a little before I pull that yellow in. And then over here I'm going to do the same thing. And we're just going to kind of like dance it up, especially on the top where you're seeing that highlight of that. There. Okay. And this foot is more solid because it's in a shadow. And then for this, what's interesting is his back leg. Same thing. We're going to do the same thing here. Actually, let's just do the same thing. So I'm going to start with his toes. 1, 2, I'm going to use the tip of my brush to develop that little toenail. 3, 4, and he's got his 5th one up here. And now I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to kind of dance it around so that we've got some scaly texture to his skin. I'm going to keep it kind of solid at the edges to give us nice definition. And his legs kind of tuck back in here. So we're just going to do that. All right, there we go. I'm happy with that. We are going to next do the same thing on his head, but he has some yellow striping on his head. So when we bring up his head, I'm going to leave this a nice hard line right here so that you can see where the shell is wrapping, and I'm just going to leave that all dark. But then as I get up here, I'm going to kind of dance my brush like this, and he's got this like yellow kind of stripes this way, right? There we go. I'm going to go around his eye. I'm going to leave that yellow where we're going to stripe the yellow, and I'm going to come down here, and then we're going to come down here, and then I'm going to fill this in a little wider, and then we're going to leave another kind of yellow stripe right there. We're going to fill that yellow in a little bit, not yet. Okay, there we go, and he's kind of thing up here. Okay, there's his head. Oh, he's so cute. Look at how cute our little turtle is. Now, we want to add some definition. I'm going to use this same color. We're going to add a little definition around the edge of his shell, because you see how it's kind of gotten, there we go. We're just going to kind of outline it. Just give us a little definition. And then the same thing is true down here. We're just going to kind of give it a little outline, little shadow, right? Because this is shadowy. Now, I want to, I'm going to add a bit of this darker green and a bit of the yellow color here. And it's going to come in right next to his leg here. And we're just going to kind of pull that in, because it is. And same thing back here. Yep, and same thing here. We're going to make that a little darker. All right. The next thing we're going to do is let it dry. We're going to let it dry because I want to make sure that before we add those yellow highlights into his other, he's got little like yellowy undertones in his, all these scaly places. What we could do, no, we're just going to let it dry. I'm going to be patient. Okay. Let's come back in 20 minutes so that we can finish this up after it dries. Okay, our turtle has dried, and now we're going to just paint yellow over the top of what we already did for this bluey green color. That's going to make him look a little greener, but it's also going to let us put in those yellowy highlights. I'm going to use my kind of a mix down here that I've got. I think I was using quinacridone gold, so we'll throw some of that in here because it's just a nice gold yellow. And we're just going to come in there. We're not going to paint over his eye, but I'm basically just going to cover his whole turtley self with this yellowy color. And because we painted a blue underneath, what's nice is now we have this lovely green, because the yellow is transparent, so you're seeing that blue color underneath, but it's got this kind of nice green color now. Okay, we're going to do the same here. I'm going to leave his toes alone. I'm going to just do a quick coat here. I've got some really nice dimension. All right, and the back side of his foot there. All right. We're going to work on a little bit of definition around this part of his shell. I'm going to add my green blue. And I'm just going to add a little bit of he's got kind of a little shadow right here because he's got this separate, And so I'm going to add this darker color along here, and then watch what we're going to do. Okay. Now I'm going to get just water on my brush, and I'm going to pull it up to create a shadow without, there we go. We're just going to soften the edge and pull it up. And if you're getting kind of a hard line, you can go back in, add a little more water. I'm going to add, and then you can go back in and charge in a bit more darkness if you want. Now that that water's there, we're just going to add, there we go. Because we've got like the sunlight, right, hitting this. And then when we feel good about that, I feel good, yep, like that. Now we're going to add a little bit of shadow, or not even shadow necessarily, but more definition around this outside edge of his turtle shell, because it did bleed together. Mine bled together a lot, so I'm just going to go back in and kind of tighten this up a little. There we go. All right, I think he's pretty cute. Let's paint the background. We're going to go back to a bigger brush. I'm not going to go with my giant brush because I think I won't have enough control. So I'm going to go to this size 6, size 8, even a size 10 would be okay. But I'm not going to go all the way up to my 14. And for the background, in the reference photo, it's just like kind of a green background because he's sitting on a rock and you can see all the greenery and foliage in the back. And so I'm going to take my quinacridone gold up here, and I'm going to use my genuine apatite green. And I'm just going to make a really watery mix of the two, kind of next to each other, but not on top of each other, right? There we go. Let's get some more of this. So now I have these mixes here, up here. And I'm going to add lots of water because I want to have it be really light. And we're going to go in and we're just going to start with one and just then add some of the other color in between, so that we just have some interest, and get close to the turtle. Try to cover most of it, and then we'll get closer to the turtle at, after we get most of this covered. Because what you want to avoid is having any of this you don't want it to start to dry. Because if it starts to dry, you start to get some funky edges, and we're going to try to avoid that. Okay, so we've got a rock that he's standing on, so we're just going to kind of, all right, make a line right there. Now, we're going to bring this down. I'm going to rinse my brush, get some water, but not too much water. And because if you bring too much water, you're going to bloom. And I'm just going to bring this really close to the edge of my cutesy little turtle. I'm not going to touch the turtle, but I'm just coming really close. I'm just kind of pushing that paint with water down to the edge of my turtle. Now, I really think this will be a cute, splashy background. So I'm going to get some of my green. I've actually got it pretty thick here, but very watery. And what I'm going to do, I don't want to splash all over my rock or my turtle, so I'm just going to put a paper towel here, and I'm just going to kind of go like this. Now, because our background is really wet, it's not going to be hard little droplets. Instead, it's going to spray out in this kind of interesting pattern. Now, I'm going to do the same thing with my gold color. And I love to do this to make just an interesting, and we can kind of pop in. I'm going to charge a little more of the gold in here. Just kind of play with it. Now you can overwork stuff and have it suddenly look crappy, so you got to be a little careful. And if you're on cotton paper, this works better. If you're not on cotton paper, it's going to be really easy to overwork the paper. The cotton just holds all of this water better. Okay, so then, and you know what's interesting? In my reference photo here, it gets darker up in here. So I'm gonna again cover everything up, and I'm gonna do a little bit of darkness here, just because I like that idea. Boy, it just adds some interest, right? And it's all the colors that we are using in the painting ends up in the background. All right, I'm going to leave that alone. And the next thing, I think I'm going to leave it alone. I'm just going to touch some up here. Okay, now I'm going to leave it alone. Okay, and now we're going to make our rock. And the rock is just kind of a stony color. It's got some yellow undertones and some blue undertones. And so we are going to use kind of a mix. This is where if you have a dirty palette, it's nice. I'm just going to use a mix of this kind of warm set of colors, but I'm going to really water it down because I want it to be barely a color. Okay, and now we're just going to run this up to and next to him. I'm going to take that paint really close to everything, and we're just going to, now this is a rock surface, and it's got some like interesting, it's kind of granity almost. And so I'm going to pull in, but with some cooler colors. So I'm just going to pull in and kind of tip in some other colors. This works really well when you're on a cotton paper, because look at how much that pops around. So we're just adding some texture here. No rhyme or reason, just like dancing the brush around to give myself some, and I might add a little bit of more, a bit more kind of warmer texture too, because it's kind of how it is. I'm not sure I love that, but we're going to leave it for now. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't know that I love that, but if I try to scrape that out, I'm going to end up with a big mess. So it's not worth it to me to do that. Instead, I'm just going to pull a little bit more of this bluey color in and kind of, there we go. Okay, so now this turtle has a shadow because the sun is coming, and the shadow is here. So the sun's coming from this side. You can see this is lighter, this is darker. So what we're going to do for our shadow is use the same turtley color that we've used for everything else, these bluey green mix. I'm going to add a little more blue. Shadows are often have a blue cast to them. Pay attention when you're walking around outside and check that stuff out. As you're an artist, you want to start paying attention to what's around you and what things look like, what colors, things are. And I'm going to just come in and hit the shadow here. And I'm pretty wet right now, so I just have to be careful. And it kind of comes, it does come all the way back here. The shadow does in the picture kind of extend this way. And then it kind of comes from where his feet are, like this. And then you see almost a distinct line right here where his shell is. So I'm going to just gently, I'm ever so gently brushing in here so that I don't make a big mess. But I like that it's still wet right now. And then his head, here's the thing that's funny. Okay, so he's got a shadow that comes like this, right underneath of his toes. And you can see in the shadow where his head pops up. So what I'm going to do, his head is going this way, but the shadow goes this way. So you can see like this little like diamond shape right here, and that kind of goes off the paper. Okay, that's super fun. I think that's it. I think we're done with our turtle. If you want, we have to paint the eye. Oh gosh, we can't leave a turtle with no eye. Okay, we're going to want a really thin, tiny brush for this. I'm going to use my size 1 rigger. And his eye is ringed in a really dark color, so I'm going to get a really dark version of both my blue and my green. Oh my gosh, see how dark that is? And we're just going to ring around where his eye is with that. But actually first, his eye is like a really bright green. It's kind of pretty in the picture. It's like a green, yellowy green. So I'm going to color in with that first. The light green. I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll go back in with, it would be fun. Okay, this is where we can make details. You can stop here if you want to. You don't have to keep going. But I kind of want to come into each one of these and just kind of give them a little like, I don't know, I just want to play with it. Give it a little more texture in the middle. Not super distinct, but just kind of a little like, yeah, those like circle patterns that I always think of it as being so much a part of a turtle. I'm just kind of outlining these a little bit. Again, do not have to do this. I'm just messing. I'm messing while the eye is drying. If you want to be done and just use a pen to fill in that little eyeball, you can do that. Okay. Let's see if his eye is dry enough. it's not. So what I'm going to do is use my heat gun. I don't use these a lot because it can actually fade the paint a little. But every once in a while, for this little teeny bit, I'm going to. So here we go. Ready? There we go. That dries his eye. Now, I'm going to get that really dark color I made. And it's almost shaped like a teardrop. So I'm just going to start at the top and come around. And then I'm going to start at the top again for the other side. And come around. And then he's got like his eyeball is kind of like a slit. So I'm going to make that slit. And I'm going to leave it alone. And then while I have this dark color on my paint, what I could do is kind of make a little line where his mouth is, because there is kind of an outline there. And it's just super thin, right? Okay, let's leave our turtle alone. I think he's done. He's so cute. I love how the shadow turned out, and I think our background is really nice. And if you wanted to go in and make this shell more detailed, you could. There's some really interesting textures, but I think if we're looking at doing something that is more beginner friendly, then we're going to let it sit like this and enjoy him as he just is. All right, well, thanks for watching this July 10th tutorial for World Watercolor Month. I'm so glad you joined me. I can't wait for us to paint again tomorrow.